All right, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Carissa. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager here at Anvyl, and I'm going to be your host today. We're going to be talking about some really exciting key trends in supply chain and navigating supply chain for the next year. I'm also joined by my fellow panelists. We will have a chance to introduce ourselves in just a second, but let's go ahead and get started. All right, so as mentioned, my name is Carissa. I am a Senior Customer Success Manager at Anvyl. For those of you who don't know, Anvyl is a PO management tool that allows customers and brands to interact and collaborate with their internal teams, along with their suppliers and third-party collaborators, such as their 3PL or their freight forwarders, on the progress of their purchase orders. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our other hosts. Carly, if you'd like to take over.
Hey everyone, my name is Carly Dawdell. I manage the partnerships team over at ShipBob. I've been with ShipBob for over 6 years, so I like to think I know a lot about shipping and logistics. And quick overview of ShipBob is we help brands fulfill their orders from all of their sales platforms. And then Rob, I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks so much, Carly. Thanks everybody for joining, and Carissa and the Anvyl team for organizing us today. I'm Rob Domagala. I've been heading up business development and partnerships at ReturnBear for about 2.5 years now, which is much of our existence. And ReturnBear is a full life cycle returns and reverse logistics partner. And our scope of work spans from return portal and initial customer return request or RMA, all the way to the final disposition of a return product or products. And looking forward to sharing more later, but let's throw it over to Nick for his intro.
Hey everyone, so Nick, Head of Purchasing at Vertice. I'm sure you picked up, not stateside. I'm based in London where our HQ is, and Vertice is a tech-enabled service. We help customers visualize their SaaS stack, understand where potential savings can be made, and then offer the negotiating service on top of that.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Really excited to hear about your expertise and some key, trends and strategies that you're going to recommend for the attendees today. All right, let's jump into the agenda. So we're going to start with an overview of Anvyl's report. From there, we'll jump into some expertise and recommended key strategies from Vertice, ShipBob, ReturnBear, and then Anvyl. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A for all of you to participate and ask us any questions that you might have. Something to note, we are recording today's session, and it will be sent to you all within 24 to 48 hours via email. All right, so in December 2023, Anvyl conducted a survey among consumer brands that reported an annual revenue between 15 million and 750 million on their planned strategies for the 2024 year. From there, we were able to have some key strategies that we want to recommend to you, but I also wanted to point out some major insights that we got from that report. First off, 43% of brands that we surveyed cited supply shortages as a top disruptor to their supply chain. 52% identified visibility as a major priority for them in 2024. 62% indicated an upswing in their budget or spend that they're planning for their technology stack. And then lastly, 40% are definitely planning to invest in technology for their supply chain in 2024. All right. With that, let's jump into Vertice.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So look, I think the reason that we're here is probably those last 2 points. And there's an uptick in investment across all sectors, but we're seeing it from an e-commerce or a commerce standpoint, like pretty heavily. But at Vertice, we deal with customers across 20 to 25 different countries globally. We're running teams across multiple locations as well. But we're really here to help people understand what their stack looks like, what their stack probably should look like, and how we can get them from A to B, whilst making sure that the contracts that we're negotiating for people and on behalf of our customers are the best contracts that can be in front of them. And that doesn't necessarily mean the best commercial offer, but we really want to make sure that the contract that you're signing is going to be fit for purpose for the lifetime of that contract. So some interesting takes over the last 12 or so months is that what we've seen is new purchases have actually fallen quite dramatically. So historically, throughout the first few years of us doing business, we saw that new purchases typically would run at about 20% of total. We're now seeing that drop, as I say, significantly, 11, 12, maybe 13%. So a huge drop in the overall new purchase landscape. And what that actually means is that it's causing the second part of this, which is renewal prices are increasing. For those who are maybe less familiar with SaaS, the idea is that contracts become more and more profitable over time. So often a low entry point. And the idea is that you'll build the value of that relationship. With these reduced new purchases, there's been an even bigger increase, or an even bigger swing, I guess, towards making those existing relationships more and more fruitful. And as I said, that has led to an increase in renewal costs. It's not uncommon currently for us to see increases of costs of 20% plus for a like-for-like contract. And that's where we come in. We help people understand that those things are coming up. So we obviously have a good insight into what's changing. We can forearm customers to have those conversations with their suppliers early, and ideally give you time to look at other suppliers if necessary, or have that open and honest conversation with your supplier 3, 4, 5 months out. But consumer brands. So interestingly, from our data, and we do have quite a few consumer brands, or maybe unsurprisingly, marketing is something that you guys spend a lot more on. It's obviously very important to get brands out in front of potential customers, probably more so than B2B customers. We also see a much higher spend on support. This is actually quite interesting. I didn't necessarily think this was going to be the case, but it has turned out that when it comes to looking at support vendors and how people can, or how vendors can really look after your customers, there's a huge uptick when it comes to the money that consumer brands are spending. And then I think the most interesting one for me was that there's actually higher spend on SaaS per employee at consumer brands. That one was something that I didn't expect at all. I thought that there would probably be quite a lot of SaaS when it comes to the consumer facing part of your businesses. But there's also a big investment behind the scenes on customers trying to streamline as much as they can, and ideally just I guess get rid of waste. And I think consumer brands are at a tipping point where they're seeing real gains by moving towards a more technology first approach rather than I guess a human first approach when it comes to trying to solve some of the more novel tasks. And then I thought it'd be good to kind of give some indication of the kinds of customers that we are working with and what we help them achieve. So small customer out of Sweden, First Bet, probably don't need to go into what exactly they do, fairly straightforward, but we've really helped them understand what they're spending money on. We've been able to really bring them advice on how to move forward with certain suppliers. And it's not just about, that negotiating part of what we do. The first two parts of, giving you this single source of truth, and then within that single source of truth, being able to come to you with recommendations is a really important part of it. Where I've seen procurement teams potentially fall down in the past, or sourcing teams fall down in the past, is that they only really get a chance to do the last bit, and which is negotiate. They don't get a chance to take that full visibility of the stack, do some analysis, and then understand how to move the whole stack forward. It ends with you having kind of piecemeal solutions. Potentially, you're going to have multiple solutions that solve the same problem, or you're going to have instances where there's a real chance for you to consolidate with a single vendor and drive benefits through that. But that only really comes from getting that visibility first. So I'd say that's probably the first bit of value that we deliver to customers, is really that single source of truth. And then we can make all of the advisory parts after that. So yeah, this was a great customer for us. And it says like 14 days to get that visibility. It was obviously a great result for them. And now the 300% ROI is obviously something that they're really happy with.
That's great. Those are some great results that you shared.
And then, just some tips for people on the call as they go into potential negotiations with SaaS suppliers. If you are looking at new tools, timing is obviously very important. Do your research before you start. Have a look at when quarter ends are, financial year ends are. As I mentioned at the beginning, what we're seeing is a real reduction in new purchases. So the discounts available for new purchases are probably as high as I've ever seen them. So definitely take your time. Trade your time for an early sign as well. So let suppliers know this isn't something you're looking to do in the next month or quarter. really take them through the journey of this is something that we're potentially looking at doing in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time. Make them buy your business early. So keep your keep your options open. Don't commit too soon to one supplier. Make sure you're really going through a proper process with at least 2, but preferably 3 suppliers. If not for any other reason than that each of those suppliers will tell you potential pitfalls with the others. And so it does let you know that maybe not everything that the salesperson is telling you is true. I'm sure salespeople don't lie. But it does allow you to sanity check the decisions that you're going to make. And that's going to be really important if you're going to have kind of long-term success with your suppliers. And then benchmarking contracts. And this is something that is less easy to do if you're not using a third party. There is some availability on places like Reddit and such sites. But this is where we really help is we're going to give you an insight into what it's going to cost to solve these problems early. Somebody may come to us and say, we're looking at buying Zendesk as an example, and we can really help them understand within their scope what the likely cost is going to be in from a budget perspective. So get out there, speak to as many people as possible. Don't waste too much time doing it, but give yourself time to make a great decision.
Thanks, Nick.
Amazing. Thank you, Carissa.
Great, Carly. Go ahead and take your slides now.
Awesome. Well, that was super helpful, Nick. And I honestly can use you for every decision I make when budgeting in my life. But yeah, so for those of you that don't know ShipBob and who we are, ShipBob works with brands of all sizes. We can work with all e-commerce platforms, and we can work with a brand that's just starting off to a brand like Spikeball, TB12, Touchland, just to name a few that are doing thousands of orders per day. There's really 2 ways to utilize ShipBob. The first one is you can use our WMS, which is our warehouse management solution. And really what that does is you can embed that in your own warehouse and you can take advantage of our technology and our discounted shipping rates. And the second way you can utilize ShipBob is we have 50 warehouses in the US and 6 international locations as well. And so really what that looks like is we can connect to all your sales channels. You send your physical products to one of our warehouses or multiple warehouses, and then we pick, pack, ship it out for you, as well as providing you with discounted shipping rates. And like I said, we can really work with brands of all sizes, and we ship globally as well. So it's just a little high-level overview of what ShipBob does. And so we come out every year with a state of fulfillment report. And this is when we survey our customers, and this is what we found out. So 36% of GMV in the US comes from 4 states: California, Texas, Florida, and New York. 53% of GMV in the US comes from 9 states. 35 of all e-commerce orders in the US are in 4 states. Again, it's California, Texas, Florida, and New York. And then 52% of all e-commerce orders in the US are in 9 states. So I think if we've learned anything from the last 3 years, it's you have to be nimble and you have to spread your inventory, which I'll show you in the next slide. I actually have a really cool graph that gets into how to achieve distributed inventory, which is essentially what that slide was saying. So I think this honestly lays it out perfectly. So in the first graph, you can see what it looks like if you are using one warehouse, whether that's a ShipBob warehouse or your own warehouse. And for this example, the one warehouse is in California. So you can see that the whole East Coast is pretty much, and the Midwest is blue and purple, meaning that it's going to take an average of 7 days to get to those regions and those states. Now, when you add 3 fulfillment centers, so that graph right below it, and for this example, it shows those states that I just mentioned in those stats. It's California, Texas, and this one looks right to be outside of New York and Pennsylvania. You can see that the light blue and purple are completely eliminated, meaning that your orders with those 3 fulfillment centers are getting to the end customer within like 3 to 4 business days, right? So really what that allows brands to do, it allows them to be nimble. Let's say that there's a snowstorm in Texas. It happens, it's happened. And so you can easily just route your orders to your other fulfillment centers. And then from a cost perspective, it really helps lower that cost and that transit time. I think Amazon has really ingrained it in everyone's head that we should get orders in 2 days or less. And so to keep up with that, you have to distribute your inventory. And then, of course, if you just have one warehouse and you're shipping to, let's say, New York from California, it's going to be expensive. It's going to have to go on a plane if someone's ordering today. And so when you're distributing your inventory correctly, it's really allowing you to drop that price and be more cost effective for the end buyer, which is of course going to help with shopping cart abandonment. And really how ShipBob does it is we use our WMS to really make that decision for us. And I'll get into more detail about our WMS. Perfect. Yeah. So this is, so one thing, once you have your inventory distributed correctly, you really want to focus on optimizing your supply chain. And really that comes through in the software, making sure you have the right WMS to power that. With ShipBob, we have our own WMS. And like I said, it powers all 50 of our warehouses and 6 international locations. And you can even embed it in your own warehouse if you own or rent space. And it's really important for brands in 2024 to have a strong WMS, right? You want to be cost conscious as possible. And with a strong WMS, it really helps you power things like knowing, hey, what's my top performing SKU? What's my least top performing SKU? How much inventory do I have in each warehouse? When should I be reordering inventory? How can I optimize that? So having a strong WMS really helps power all that. And with ShipBob's WMS, it gives you really good data insights. Just to name a couple of things that our WMS provides, it helps you go ahead and know how to distribute your inventory. If you're using our warehouses or you're using a blended approach. And what I mean by that is maybe you have your own warehouse in California, but you want to use our warehouse in New York. That's totally a possibility. And with ShipBob's WMS, it shows you how much inventory you have in each warehouse, as well it tells you how much incoming stock maybe you have coming in from your distributor. And then it also tells you how much stock is pending. So how much stock is committed to orders that might be going out that day. And then of course we have discounted shipping rates. With ShipBob's WMS, when orders are shipped out, we're going to optimize for speed and cost. So we are going to choose the carrier that's going to get it there in a timely manner and is going to get it there in the most cost-effective option. So 2 really big things you want to be thinking about. And then the third one is our WMS will make AI-driven decisions for you. It's a free tool within our WMS, and it's an analytics tool that says, hey, if you want to look and see what it is or how your transit time and postage rate is going to come down if you add on another warehouse, you can easily just run those numbers and make that educated decision using our analytics tool. So all really, 3 really powerful things that you want to make sure that your WMS can do. And then 5 ways to reduce your carbon footprint. This is super important. And every time we survey merchants, this always comes up. I think this is a trend that we see from brands and it's not going away. And a lot of brands have this in their mission statement. So for a beauty brand that is environmentally conscious and eco-friendly, it's super important that their packaging doesn't come in plastic. And so with ShipBob, you can use branded packaging. This is a great example of one of our brands, Boy. They have a 100% compostable bag, and it shows it on their order. And then, yeah, with ShipBob, you can have that option. And then, of course, it just helps offset your carbon emissions when you're distributing inventory. You're not just shipping from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. it really just helps lower that carbon emissions when you have inventory distributed because it's going to closer destinations. So something to think about, something super easy to implement as well. And then a 2024 trend we've seen that I'm sure everyone is aware of is sell everywhere. You want to reach your customers where they are. And it's, oftentimes that your customer might be at Ulta, they might be at Target, they might be scrolling on TikTok before they go to bed. I know I am. And so it's really making sure that your 3PL can not only integrate with your Shopify or your BigCommerce or your WooCommerce, but that they're EDI compliant, meaning that they can ship to wholesalers like Target and Ulta, as well as ship from their .coms. We've seen Target do a really big push that they are taking on a lot of e-commerce brands to Target.com. So you want to make sure that your 3PL is equipped to do that. And then one thing I do want to touch on is TikTok. It's the most exciting new channel to sell on. And a lot of our top performing brands are selling on TikTok, and we're just seeing a huge uptick as well of brands in the new year that are getting on TikTok. So of course, a new sales channel that you definitely should check out. And there's two ways to utilize TikTok. With fulfillment, you can do FBT, which is fulfilled by TikTok, or merchant fulfilled, which is, having your 3PL fulfill it. You may have to use a middleware, but two really interesting options and something I encourage all brands to check out.
Great. Thanks, Carly. That was an awesome recommendation. Love seeing TikTok being talked about when it comes to supply chain and business. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Is this you, Carly?
Yeah, I'll highlight this one really quickly. No worries. This is a case study from one of our brands. It's a women's health brand. And before ShipBob, they were using a smaller 3PL. They were growing really fast. And since moving to ShipBob, they're in 4 fulfillment centers. They've lowered their costs They lowered their transit times. They've increased their order volume because we can keep up with their order volume. They're at a 99.95 order accuracy rate, and they are using ShipBob for shipping their D2C orders as well as their B2B. And that's it. I'll hand it back off to you, Krista.
Great. Thanks, Carly. All right. Next up, we're going to talk with Rob from ReturnBear.
Thanks, everybody. I am in the enviable position of having so many meaningful segues to connect to my spot in the conversation, our spot in the conversation. But I think the ones I'll lean on were well framed by Nick and by Carly. Like there's these themes that I think everybody will learn more about when you unpack Anvyl's report that'll be shared with you soon. But also you'll see as you just engage, in this commerce ecosystem that we're all working to grow. But these themes of optimizing your supply chain for outbound. Obviously, I care about optimizing your supply chain when it comes from a return perspective, optimizing your vendor relationships and your SaaS spends, having well thought out timing around all these things. So super exciting to sort of shine a returns lens on this from my perspective. Just as a quick introduction, since I'm sure many folks don't know who ReturnBear is. We are a Toronto-based complete e-commerce returns solution or provider. The platform we've been building for the last 3 years is one that focuses on the entirety or the full life cycle of a return, all the way from initiation to final disposition to a myriad of potential channels, even the next closest customer potentially. Again, all in service of optimizing the reverse logistics life cycle and sort of the actual ultimate value of a brand's products. And we operate across North America and soon in the UK, closer to Nick, and Australia, we hope as well. So you could slide us forward there, Carissa. Thank you. So a couple themes that you folks will see when it comes to returns, specifically in Anvyl's report. A lot of scaling brands were surveyed, and respondents highlighted 3 particular areas as far as returns go that they're concerned about in 2024 and beyond. One, of course, is the cost of returns or lost revenue. This should be an evergreen problem that people are always trying to optimize for. But in light of having better solutions now to scale your business, like ShipBob, for example, and that's sort of the global footprint you can all of a sudden unlock with a partner like that, more sales will inevitably create returns as a byproduct. And if we think holistically about returns as a key part of your product value and life cycle and journey, then again, we can try to at least fight back against some lost revenue that may come from that. Brands are also concerned about simply the time it takes to process returns, and this stands to reason because those return parcels are equivalent to cash, right? And the longer they're tied up in a return cycle and they're unsellable, the longer you're in a cash deficit, right? The faster you can unlock those items and turn them back into sellable inventory and get them to another customer in the most efficient way, the faster you're cash positive and the value of them is truly being realized. And again, that connects to another theme. Brands are concerned about an inability to resell returns quickly, and where again, I think we will continue to see brands being challenged by that particular obstacle is when they scale international operations and grow into markets that they don't have local fulfillment or local return solutions in place for. A desire to tap into new markets, of course, a new audience, but a byproduct is that a return journey may have to, be transatlantic or transpacific, cross oceans, before items can be verified, fraud can be mitigated, and again, the cash value of those items can be realized. So these are themes we're going to see more of. One key trend that I would share with everybody and that you may be experiencing yourselves is, again, I would say a new initiative to consider the full life cycle of your returns and optimizing that journey. In doing so, we reduce recovery time, we reduce associated costs, and maximize the activation of those products into actual revenue. And I think, in years past, returns has largely been like a customer service problem. But now looking at the entirety of that return journey is something more and more brands are speaking to our team about, trying to figure out all of the various steps, cost and profit centers along that route, and thinking about it truly end to end holistically. And that's where our team steps in. Carissa. Thank you. So again, when I say full life cycle real quickly, I think when returns as a category to solve was defined over the last 6 or 7 years, it was largely from a customer service and customer automation perspective, enabling that user on the left to realize the need to return an item, log into an elegant piece of software, the return portal in popular sort of speak, and initiate a return without having to email customer service or sit through a live chat. And the brand, of course, benefiting from an expedited process, getting that shipping label at the end of the day back to the customer. And again, in previous years, this would be a sufficient probably view of returns, making that customer experience automation and customer service burden go away. However, full life cycle now means we need to consider alternate ways to receive those items. If you could move us to the next slide, please. That might include package-free, label-free drop-offs or at-home pickup, other ways of collecting an item that go beyond simply ending that return journey with provisioning of a shipping label to a customer. And of course, as we start collecting product across multiple channels, meeting the customer where they are, which is fantastic, we create more opportunity for delay or breakage if those processes aren't optimized and if we're not thinking about, again, the entirety of that return product. So if we move forward, we have to consider the fact, Chris, if you just slide us forward pretty please, thank you. We have to consider the fact that there's going to be downstream verification of items, fraud mitigation, making sure those units that are being now collected across more channels are up to your SOPs and the brand's standard practices and meet the terms of your return policy. We also want to make sure that, of course, any customer requests can be triggered in a timely manner, and you have to think about what it'll take to convert that drop-off into an exchange or verify an item that's been picked up by an Uber potentially, how quickly it will take to get the next product that the customer requested back to them. And indeed, to Carly's point about selling everywhere, those returns, that originate on one channel need not always be put back into supply in that channel. And so a brand has the opportunity to very quickly, if you're thinking about this in a full life cycle perspective, convert those units to, to physical retail stores they may be opening, if that is the more timely way of dispositioning the product, maybe routing unsellable goods right away to donation partners to minimize logistics costs and recovery costs, as well as carbon footprint, or indeed, getting back to your 3PL like ShipBob or to another customer potentially. Can move forward, please. Thank you. So again, on that note about getting to other customers, another trend that I continue to see when speaking with brands that are sort of embracing a little bit more of this holistic view of the return life cycle is actually a desire for micro forward fulfillment, or what I'll call micro forward fulfillment. And this is the idea of taking returns in their local markets and actually converting them into ready to sell inventory, fulfilling locally to the next customer from those return hubs if the items have been processed, verified, repacked, and prepared for shipment, and actually eliminating extraneous journeys back to central fulfillment locations. And this obviously has, a huge opportunity to cut down carbon footprint, like Carly was saying, as well as increase the speed of recovery, the speed of verification, and the speed of activating that asset back into a saleable product to the next closest customer. And so again, to visualize this, we can imagine products originating maybe from a large Canadian brand having to be fulfilled through Canada's vast geography, hitting a cross-border point, potentially, if you're not working with a partner that has distributed fulfillment locations like ShipBob. And then, you would imagine a return journey having to cross that same border. In a micro forward fulfillment scenario, that return can be converted into inventory that could be circulated multiple times within the geography that it lands in. Ideally cutting down the cost of fulfillment to the next customer by having now a regional micro fulfillment center by way of those returns that have been masked, and indeed like eliminating unnecessary carbon journeys. And I see more and more brands asking about this as a mechanism to reduce logistics cost, increase delight and speed for customers, and sort of be better environmental citizens when they imagine all the returns they're going to inevitably have to handle through the growth that they so desperately want to drive for their businesses, which is completely fair. You can move forward, Carissa. Thank you. So again, like all of this sort of new thinking that I continue to see percolating is really a perspective of returns no longer being a liability and instead being more of an opportunity. And again, when we stop thinking about simply just like handling the return, how do I provide this functionality to my customer, and we actually start thinking about how do I optimize this return? How do I optimize the life cycle of it? That's where we can bring to market ideas like local verification in your international markets where you may not have a headquarters or a 3PL, to reduce fraud, faster refunds for and credits for customers, of course, the potential savings by having distributed local consolidation or reduction of warehouse fees, not needing to re-ingest as many products into your standard supply. And then again, obviously maximizing inventory that's available for sale. And a lot of the more brands who have scaled into international markets that we deal with are really thinking about returns as a profit center all of a sudden in a new way, instead of that liability and that unfortunate byproduct of great sales work. And again, when we string these things together, the more brands we see thinking about this end to end is where we start to see material like impact being created from a bottom line perspective. Often we'll see up to 50% savings for comparable logistics costs when returns are sort of isolated and optimized in this manner. Obviously, retained revenue is always key through a return flow, exchanges and store credits. One wants to position to customers. We see an increased propensity for a customer to select store credit or exchange when there is a faster promise of return processing on the other side of that return policy, or where there are more convenient local mechanisms to do the return, like package-free drop-off or at-home pickup potentially, because they know that the resolution will happen quickly instead of a 2-week journey of a product from the US back to Australia, let's just say. And so that speed drives that sort of loyalty and revenue retention from our research. And indeed, of course, meeting customers where they are. We see a growing trend of more than 63% customers using package-free, label-free drop-offs here in Canada. And again, these are trends you would expect to see in the US as well and in other markets. And so as we think of more ways to meet customers where they are, that loyalty drives these other metrics that we want to see as returns become a bigger picture conversation. And so again, yep, finally, folks will get these things as a takeaway. So I won't belabor the point, but one of our brands, Nadare, sells jewelry globally. And they needed a partner that could handle both their D2C channels in the US and Canada, as well as an increasing assortment of marketplace channels and secondary marketplaces where returns are usually sort of like separated from D2C, with a lack of warehousing in the United States, primarily in Canada right now, needing an on-the-ground solution in their non-local market was one of the reasons why Nadare chose to work with ReturnBear. In jewelry, where items are precious, we see a huge adoption of those package-free, label-free drop-offs, 90% plus of their returns coming in at that rate, which is driving a sharp decrease in the cost of their shipping fees. The ability, in fact, for the brand to offer free returns in an increasingly competitive market because of the savings that can be driven through, again, like these sort of more omni-channel return experiences. And so one partner now is able to assess, verify, validate, receive in convenient, fast manners returns across all of North America for this particular brand in order to help them focus on growth. And so thinking about your return lifecycle just as you would your outbound with ShipBob or your SaaS supply chain with Vertice, these holistic approaches to conducting business, I think are what's going to drive a lot of success for brands in the years to come.
Great, thanks, Rob. That was great. Okay, so basically to echo everything that my fellow speakers have been saying, having a really strong supply chain tech stack is really important for end-to-end management of your supply chain and of your systems in general, and just making sure that you're making cost-efficient choices, time-efficient choices. And Anvyl really wants to make sure that you all come or walk away from this webinar with key strategies or recommendations that we've all been making to make sure that you're set up for success in 2024. More and more brands are understanding the importance of having a strong supply chain tech. And with our report, we noticed 3 strong areas of focus that brands want to either improve on or really focus on in 2024. And those were visibility, supplier relationships, and having a strong data warehouse or place to store all of your data or have all of your data be complete. And so from our survey, I just want to jump into that. The first one with visibility, we identified 3 areas within visibility that brands want to focus on. 24% of brands wanted to have more visibility into their inventory management. 18% of brands wanted to have more visibility into their purchase order management, and 14% of brands wanted to have more visibility into the communication that they're having with their suppliers. So that includes, let's say, collaboration, negotiations, and also file management or any of the documentation that they're sharing with their suppliers. It makes sense to want to focus on visibility, and a reason why is because of the time that it spends to talk with your suppliers and making sure that you have a strong relationship with them to not only have great negotiations, have time savings, make sure that you can get ahead of challenges that might be coming, disruptions in your supply chain, having a strong relationship with your suppliers and having a place that you've centralized all of your communication with them to be able to refer to historically or to go ahead and make decisions for looking forward or proactively is really important. Right. So to give you an example of one of our customers who is looking or looking to expand their visibility, we have the Anvyl customer Trendhim. Trendhim is a menswear accessories brand, and they have used Anvyl to bring all of their supply chain and purchase order management processes into one place. Right. And the way that they're doing that is they are pulling all of the processes that used to be siloed in different areas, let's say Excel or in their ERP system or in another system, and they've been able to bring and manage those processes within Anvyl. And that's really helped them to get ahead of any disruptions or any type of delays that might be coming because they have that communication with their suppliers, they have that visibility with their processes, and they're able to get ahead of those challenges. For example, their Q&A or their QA process or their QC process, so quality control or quality assurance, they were able to pull into the Anvyl system and collaborate with their suppliers and manage those inspection processes within Anvyl. This has helped the team to not only increase the number of units that they've ordered, because they can manage a larger amount of units or a larger amount of purchase orders, but they also were able to improve their on-time purchase order performance by 24%. So we saw some really great successes for our customer, where they are able to order more units to get more product out to their customers, manage a wider range of products, and also increase how well their purchase orders are arriving on time. All right. So just to dive a little bit deeper into visibility, that supplier relationship is really, really important as well. From our survey, we have noticed that more than a third of brands are planning on investing more in their supply chain's tech stack, but also investing more in supplier relationship management tools as well. They want to make sure that they have a strong relationship with their suppliers, and they want to use tools in order to do that. Almost half of the brands, or a little bit more than half of brands, are also looking to collaborate more closely with their suppliers to do forecasting for their demand and also proactively plan for any disruptions that might be coming. That way they can have a stronger relationship with their suppliers and really plan to mitigate any type of risks. An example of that is our customer, Brooklinen. Brooklinen is a home goods brand that sells different products like pillows, sheets, robes, all different kinds of things like that. And they use Anvyl to communicate with their suppliers. Now, the great thing about this is not only are they communicating with their suppliers, but they've also been able to pull in their internal teams and their software that they're using for, let's say, their ERP. So they're able to pull all of that information or connect all of that with Anvyl to centralize all of their information, all of their communication, all of the files that they're sharing with their supplier, so that all teams can work together in one place. This is eliminating duplicate work. This is also making the team more efficient, have a productivity boost, and take out those extra working hours between, switching to different places to manage their supply chain. Everything is happening in Anvyl, and it's really great because the customer has also been able to increase their on-time performance when it comes to their purchase orders. So POs are shipping on time, they're arriving on time, and they're not falling into those supply chain disruptions, like not having enough of their supply on hand. With that, they have a 95% supplier engagement rate with Anvyl. That means that 95% of their suppliers are using Anvyl successfully and efficiently, and this is creating a great way for them to really eliminate duplicate work or have to go elsewhere to get their information for their purchase order progress. Right. And another strong area, or a big area that customers want to focus on, or brands want to focus on, is having data accuracy, being able to pull strong reports that help them to make informed decisions. What we've noticed from the report is that 35% of brands reported having poor data quality. 34% of brands mentioned that they have some data inconsistencies or data inaccuracy. And lastly, 30% of brands mentioned that they're having some challenges analyzing that data or being able to process that data to make those informed decisions. So they're having some delays there, or just some challenges putting all of that data into some sort of analysis. It's really important for customers to have a strong sense of their data to make really good decisions when it comes to costs, when it comes to efficiency, when it comes to being able to mitigate any risks that come down the line when it comes to their supply chain. And a big part of that is making sure that their data is accurate. To give you an example of a Anvyl customer that has really benefited from the data that's available in Anvyl, we have Kula. Kula is a skincare and sun care brand that uses Anvyl to manage their purchase order process, but they've also used their ERP, which is called NetSuite, to manage their finance processes. Now, some customers like to manage their processes in different places, so the finance will happen in NetSuite, but the purchase order process and all of the management will happen in Anvyl. What Anvyl has allowed Kula to do is connect the two systems so that finance processes and all of the information that happens in NetSuite syncs over over to Anvyl, and all of the processes and all of the confirmations that happen in Anvyl sync over to NetSuite, basically marrying the data, marrying these processes, and giving all teams that are working in these systems the visibility that they need to make decisions, get ahead of things, or stop any delays. A lot of times, or what we've heard is, hey, has this purchase order actually been paid for? Do we have a balance due? If we don't get this payment done, a purchase order might not ship on time. So it's really great that once a process happens, or that could potentially be a blocker for a purchase order, once it happens in one system, that data is synced over to Anvyl to confirm, hey, we can move forward with this. Same thing with the purchase order. Any data that is a blocker to something happening on the finance side, that information is automatically syncing over. So with this great workway between the two systems, the customer is able to mitigate any delays, work really closely with their other teams, also make sure that suppliers are aware that the purchase order is also moving forward swimmingly on the finance side, and that's been really helpful for our customer. They've seen a 28% improvement in their on-time shipments. They also have a 95 supplier engagement rate, which means all of their suppliers, or 95% of their suppliers, are using Anvyl. And also when it comes to revisions or changes to purchase orders, they've seen a decrease. So that means if there's revisions that need to be made to POs after they've been issued, they've seen a decrease into that due to the data accuracy that they've had between NetSuite and Anvyl. All right. So that was my part of the presentation. Before we jump into Q&A, I just wanted to give everyone an option, or the visibility into where you can reach us. Now, I saw that the ShipBob team did drop also their contact information in the chat. Speakers, feel free to also do that, but we will send that information out to you all within the next 24 to 48 hours with the recording as well. You can reach the Anvyl team at anvyl.com or marketing@anvyl.com. ShipBob, you also can visit their website, but we will send all of this information out. Same thing with ReturnBear and Vertice. All right, so now we're moving into the Q&A function, or Q&A section. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should see the options similar to the chat. You also can submit questions there. Feel free to type your questions, and we will automatically receive a notification that your question has been submitted to us, and we'll be able to answer it. However, to kick things off, we do have some questions that we've already received, and I'm going to jump into those now to give folks just some time to type their questions. This first question is for Rob. What product categories are the most suitable for micro fulfillment?
Yeah, fair. Good question. I'll keep this one simple. Predictably, like the high returning categories like fashion, footwear, apparel, these are items that are easy to turn over again fairly quickly. And so are perfect candidates to go through a receiving line where they can be verified, very quickly refolded, repacked, retagged as necessary, and polybagged on the spot, and then forwarded, held and then forwarded to the next closest customer. Bigger and bulkier things, more personal items, and obviously categories like electronics that require more heavy duty testing, potentially like new battery packs being installed, things like that. Those are harder and are probably going to continue to sort of live in a brand's typical return channels for a little bit anyways, but fashion, footwear, accessories, soft goods for sure, stuff that's likely to be tried on and then tried on again and tried on again by multiple customers. Those categories are fantastic for this type of micro fulfillment.
All right. Thank you. All right, for the Vertice team, Nick, where do you expect to see the biggest change in software investment in 2024?
I think it's going to be very similar to last year in that AI is continuing to take over the world. So we're seeing more and more customers look towards not maybe AI native tools, but tools that are now got AI built into them, or some form of co-pilot, as well as AI that is kind of more on the generative side and is going to help you just, I guess, streamline tasks and ideally having one person doing 10 people's work with the support of AI. I think there are also going to be moves in kind of security that wraps around AI. I expect that as well. As with when things moved to the internet, obviously there had to be a whole new kind of suite of security products that came. I fully expect a whole suite of security products to follow behind AI to make sure people are using it in a way that fits in with the corporate structure that they're working in, making sure in the UK and Europe, like GDPR is being adhered to and personally identifiable information isn't being shared. So yeah, it'll be AI or AI adjacent tools that I expect to really take off this year.
Got it. Thanks, Nick. Rob, we do have a question for you. The question is, what's the AOV of customers who use ReturnBear?
Yeah, great question. We're typically seeing maybe between $200 to $500 basket sizes. We have some brands that sell products that sort of toe the line into luxury. And for them, of course, like package-free, label-free drop-off is sort of a convenient and secure way to enable a return and minimize some of the risk of items in transit and what have you. But I would say around $200 to $500 AOV, especially with fashion and footwear where you see people bracket buying more. Like, I'm going to buy 2 pairs of shoes. I'm going to buy the same sweater in 2 or 3 different colors with the intention of trying on at home and sending things back. Those basket sizes, and especially in footwear, can increase pretty significantly when you're sending somebody 2 or 3 sizes of shoes.
Thanks, Rob. This next question is for the Anvyl team. What are the different ways that you can customize your supply chain operations to enhance visibility? A big one that we've seen among our customers is tracking the quality assurance or QC process. That's been really helpful for our customers. Sometimes QC does hold up the purchase order proceeding. And if our customers aren't managing that within the Anvyl platform, they're either going to another area, going to email, just checking for the status of that process. So that's a really big one. Another one that we've seen is our customers have customized their supply chain process within Anvyl to track their cargo ready date versus the date that it arrives to the CFS versus, delivery being different from having things being received into inventory. There's a lot of flexibility there, and we typically work with our customers to dive deep into the biggest pain points that they have in their process right now or where the visibility is missing, and then adding that to their process within Anvyl. Okay, and then this question's for the ShipBob team. How does working with a 3PL reduce carrier costs? You mentioned adding TikTok to our sales mix. How do I get started selling on TikTok Shop?
Yeah, so for the first one, the carrier discounts, 3PLs negotiate discounts every year with all the major carriers. So all 3PLs should have discounted rates. Always try to negotiate with them. That's my one tip. And then with TikTok, I dropped my email in the chat, but essentially ShipBob can help you get on fulfilled by TikTok, so FTP. So if you want to chat through that, let me know. And then if you want to do fulfilled by merchant via TikTok, we can also help with that. So a long way of just saying, if you're interested on selling on TikTok Shop and curious how the fulfillment piece will work, happy to run you through what those options are and how the pricing works.
Great, thank you. Rob, I saw that you mentioned something in the chat where you maybe wanted to clarify on a buzzword. Did you want to speak on that just to add a little bit of color?
No, sorry. That's just there because I said it and then I sort of rambled on, but I just wanted to make sure it was clear what bracket buying was. I don't want to take away time from some of these other questions that just came in as well.
Got it. All right. So the next question is also for the ShipBob team. Does ShipBob integrate with other external inventory management systems?
Yeah, we do. We have a list. I'll drop it in the chat of the IMS OMS partners we do integrate with, but yeah. And then we also have an open API. So if you wanted to connect something we don't integrate with, we can definitely help you with that as well. And it's fairly simple.
Got it. Thank you. The next question's for the Anvyl team. It says, how difficult is it or was it to reach 95% supplier engagement? Do suppliers use mainly the portal UI or integrate their own system? So when it comes to supplier engagement, one thing that I will say is that the Anvyl team does work with your suppliers and treats them as an extension of our customers as a customer. So Anvyl hosts weekly supplier training webinars twice a week. And then we also do individual one-to-one supplier trainings as well. A big part of it is also the customer or the brand that we're working with, explaining how important it is to the customer for one, supplier performance to be top level to have a strong relationship and to explain how important it is that the supplier does use the product, right? So that's a big part of it, is just making sure that the customer, one, does communicate how important Anvyl is or the visibility of their supply chain is. And then the Anvyl team does assist our customer with training and constant monitoring of the supplier performance. On the other side, do suppliers use mainly the portal UI or integrate with their own system? Well, in most cases, suppliers are actually using Anvyl's email magic links. Anvyl does send email notifications to suppliers if they prefer that, and they are able to make updates from their mobile phone or through email. So they can reply directly to an Anvyl email, attach files, send messages, and that all goes directly to the Anvyl platform for them. We see most of the interaction happening via email, and it goes into the Anvyl platform. But we also do see suppliers using the UI just because it does have some other features like reporting and all of that for them as well. Most times we don't see suppliers integrating their own system. We have had some suppliers reach out and ask if there's some opportunity there, which we've done on like a custom or case-by-case basis. Okay. And let's see, I know that someone submitted on the Q&A. Check out all of our integrations here. That was from the ShipBob team. If you don't mind also dropping it in the chat, that would be great, just to make sure that everyone can see it. Okay, that is all of the questions that we have received. If there is any question, maybe we'll give folks another 30 seconds to type them in. But if not, again, thank you so much, everyone, both our attendees along with our speakers as well, for joining today. It was a real exciting and awesome experience to have. We are recording this, so we will be able to send it out to all attendees and registrants as well within the next 24 to 48 hours. And we'll also have resources, including Anvyl's report, along with the contact information for all of our speakers today. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.